Good morning, everyone. Hoping that all of you are having a beautiful day. And it's our 10th exploration today. And if you have been following um, some of it, or if you have been diligently following most of the practice, hopefully I have organized the practice in a way that each and every practice becomes progressive information. As in day one, there was a set of information there, and that would create a progressive environment in where we can then blossom into the next awareness or practice, and then from there into the next. So much so that we have 10 organizations or 10 classes till now. I've tried my best to keep the informations simple and accessible and light, and the classes are also short. And before we go into the 10th exploration today, some of you have asked a question a few times, and I think I would answer it today, that when do we do these explorations? As I think I've mentioned in the first video, that you could take these explorations before the class or towards the end of the class, or even a class on itself. It could be a class where you're exploring with your students, or you're exploring with the grammar. As a teacher, we are always exploring or guiding our friends who come into that space, classroom space. So it could be a restorative class in where you could keep these as themes, in where you get the students to come in contact with the nature of the breath. So if you have watched all the 10 classes, you'll see that we have not added any information onto the breath, but rather we were trying to reveal, if there is anything there, to reveal what is happening within the space of this body. And another way of looking at it with this is how the breath, when it comes in contact with the body, what kind of pattern and information is projected to the brains at that present moment. Because there are certain circumstances where we are, how we are, what time of the day the practice is, even the kind of food that we are inclined to can also change the texture in how the breath reacts with this body, or the kind of activity that we had previously also changes the way that the breath acts with or responds to this body. So most of this exploration is in tandem with how the breath is responding to this body, mind, at the present moment, influenced by my sleeping pattern, influenced by my thinking pattern, influenced by the activities that I am engaged in a daily routine, if there's a routine, and the kind of food that this body or mind is inclined to crave towards. So these are all the different circumstances that are going to influence the way that the body reacts to the breath. And the beauty of this exploration is I'm not suggesting that we change any of this, but rather be available to what is happening when the breath comes in contact with the body. Can I be there to read the information that is rising without disturbing? When I say disturbing, means without changing or modifying the breath from any other different kind of source of information. For instance, if I am breathing in a particular pattern, or start sensing the way that I'm breathing, it may be short, it may be long, it may be fragmented, there may be divisions within the breath, there may be parts where the breath becomes more towards the frontal lobe or more towards the back lobe. It could be that the breath is coming towards the foreground of this activity called or organism called body mind complexes, or you can feel the breath at the back. However, or whatever that is happening there, I could just, if I could just is a big word. Just doesn't mean it's just going to happen like that, but definitely some amount of effort is required by quietening the frontal lobe of the brain so that we could go towards the back lobe. Maybe I could give a class sometime later. I'm going to get out of the quarantine, so maybe the week after or the week after, let's see, I could give you a class about how the brain reacts to activity, circumstances, and even the brain reacts to in-breath and out-breath. That could be an interesting view that we could all look at. Yeah. So without adding, let's come back. I tend to start floating, space cadeting. So without adding any information, because we have a lot of information, especially with yoga practitioners, we have a lot of information. We want information. We can be adding, and all this information at times may assist us, may aid us in the practice of yoga, but are we willing to also know, this is the crucial part, this is important, are we also willing to know that this information can also blur the vision of seeing what's happening originally or naturally, what's happening to the breath? Because when we sense our breath, the breath is in a particular pattern and a rhythm, and then we add information onto it. For instance, that's what we are going to do today, is when we feel the breath, it's fragmented, maybe. Let's say the breath is fragmented today. It's bits and pieces. It could be a small exhalation, inhalation, and barely could feel some parts of the inhalation. You could barely feel some parts of the exhalation. So that is what I call variables within the breath, which is fragmented. Now, if this is your pattern, can I be there for that fragmented variabilities rather, or versus changing? Now, when I sense that my breath is fragmented, it is in bits and pieces, and also I'm aware of some parts of the breath, I'm unaware of certain parts of the breath. This is the reading. Now, once I am aware of that, am I changing it? Am I adding some other information? So when I sense that my breath is fragmented, I start reorganizing the breath by breathing in, making it longer, or expanding the breath and breathing out and making it longer. So there is an additional information coming from somewhere, memory, a thought, that wants to change the pattern of the breath, which is naturally happening to the body at that present moment. So this is what I'm trying to get us to avoid, especially in this exploration. simply because I would like us to also know the the natural patterns of the body. The breath, when it comes in contact with the body, it is not always I call a lullaby. It's not a beautiful song with different gradations, or it's not always a song where it is long and sweet, where the inhalation is long, exhalation is deep. It's not always these informations. There are variables in it, and when you step, this is a very beautiful part which I share with everyone, is to step out of your breath, get out of the way. There is a queue of information. There's a trail, yeah, a trail of information that is happening. And if you could step back, so you allow that trail of information to happen without adding your own complexes into the breath and changing that pattern. So that's something that I would like us to explore today, is when the breath comes in contact with this body. Now, mind you, when I say this body, I'm referring to my body, and I would like you to refer to your body, so that when I'm speaking from this context of this organization called body, I'm talking about my information. Look at your information. So what we're going to do is to come in contact, when the breath comes in contact with the body, there is going to be an information. And what information is that? So that's where I have to be silent, because there's tendencies of, if I say something, if I'm going to say the breath is fragmented, then we're going to imagine that and then apply. Or if I say that the breath is soft, or the velocity of the breath is changing, I'm saying a lot anyways, but I'm saying because I would like you to, not to apply, but I would like you to step out of the breath and let the breath reveal itself to you. And whatsoever the pattern is, have a sense of acceptance. Embrace that pattern to be itself, in itself. It's an organization in itself. A lot of burden, or if I could use the word suffering, is because there's no sense of acceptance. If we could accept that pattern there and then see what happens from there. Okay, maybe I'm talking too much. I'm in a seated position. I'm sitting on this bed. Feel free to lie on your back. Feel free to be standing. It'll be too much of effort here to be standing. But if that's what you feel like, yeah, or seated on a chair, or even lying on your side, then you have to turn sides. Let's begin by sensing the weather of the body. I choose to close my eyes, so that softens the dominance of the eyes. And then begin to, if you'd like to follow me, I begin to scan and feel my toes. And from there, progressively moving into a more superior region, the heels, and then into the ankles. From there into the shin bone or the calf. there into the joint, which is the knees. The upper legs. Let's feel and sense the pelvic floor. The base of the abdomen. To the abdominal cavity further up. Into the thoracic cavity. And from there into the shoulders. And sensing the upper arms. Into the elbow joint. Let's move into the forearm. Wrist and the fingers. Let's move into the column of the neck. The cavity of your head, the front of the head, the crown of the head, thereafter into the back of the head. Let's remain at the back of the head for a while more. And see if there's a shift of interest when you are mostly at the back of the head, if there is. The frontal brain is more interested in the motor skills, slightly at the back of the brain. You're not into any particular kind of directions or directing. It's as if you are behind the camera and is just observing. And from this space, begin to know that the breath is happening, and to that breath which is happening, can I become aware of the breath? Without modifying or making any particular changes. And after some time, there is a pattern, and this is the pattern due to the collaboration in where when the breath comes in contact with the body, there's going to be an occasion. And if I can be available to that pattern, that response, when the breath comes in contact with the body, how is my body and breath responding? Just be with that sensation. As long as you would like to be. Know that you're not adding any ingredient into the breath pattern. But the beauty here is that the breath is revealing itself to your mind, to your awareness. So there's a shift. There's a shift from breathing which is an exchange of gases in the lungs into more of a cellular respiratory, where every cell in itself is breathing. So that the breathing in the lung can go slightly to the background, and the breathing in the cells can come to the foreground. If you wish to continue this exploration, you can disconnect the live, or you choose to end this exploration and gently opening my eyes and offering light. So if you're continuing, please continue. Just a little information again of what we were doing is to, one, not add information on the breath, but let the breath reveal itself. So getting out of the way of the breath. Number two is the difference in between. When I say difference, there is a difference in between the respiratory or breathing, which changes of gas which happens here, and the cellular breathing, where the oxygen gets into every cell, and then there's a break of the breaking of the food or energy. So it's what I call as what is called, not I call, but what is called as cellular respiratory, something that you could look. So moving this breathing here, many times there's a tendency of pranayama being something here. This pattern, softening this pattern, or not even going into this pattern, stepping back from this pattern and observing the pattern which is happening behind all of this. And that's why I said in that exploration, move into the background. Or if this pattern, this breathing or exchanges of gas, if this is happening here in the foreground, see if that has moved to the background. It is happening. Of course, you're breathing into your lungs, and definitely that's happening. But see if that's moving, that's moved into the background, and what has come to the foreground. It's a very subtle, fragmented pulsation. It's still there. And that if I can, I refer to as cellular breathing. That every cell in the body is breathing. And what I'm doing, I'm inviting all of us to be aware of that pattern where the entire body breathes. Wishing all of you a beautiful day. And I'm not sure if I can come on tomorrow. Tomorrow is my blood test or the swab test. I'm not sure. I've already had the swab test for COVID and negative, and now I'm going to have the blood test. I think they come to the room, and I'm not sure what time of the day. It was given somewhere around this time or in the evening. And if I appear tomorrow, I appear. Otherwise, this is it. Our exploration ends here. I get to go back home, and then I need to organize myself at home and visit my mom. So this is where we end with sensing the body and letting the breath breathe. And thank you so much. I really appreciate the time that you've all spent with me. Has kept myself engaged with my interests on yoga as a science, art, and practice. And thank you all.